it's still hard to really rest in pleasure. And part of that is attention span, like you're saying. Part of it is that ability to stay with the experience. But part of it is really like a larger conditioning to be like, that's not what's important. That's not what matters. That's not what's valued. Like, I'm going to think my way out of this. I'm going to think my way to feeling good or having a good experience. And like how often I'm not really present for what's happening. Welcome to Cosmic Clowns, a podcast about exploring consciousness, surviving chaos, and finding the comedy in it all. I'm Sebene Selassie, a writer and teacher, a living room dancer and shower singer, a body oil enthusiast, and a heated rivalry fangirl.
And I'm Jocelyn K. Glei, a writer and an energy worker, a lover of big desks and even bigger whiteboards, a serial maker of altars, and a dedicated reader of queer fiction, and thus also obviously an enthusiastic fan of Heated Rivalry as well, which is a lovely TV series to watch for Valentine's Day if you haven't already dived into this gay hockey show that the internet is totally obsessed with, including us. And speaking of Valentine's Day, which will be happening the day after this episode first airs, we have decided to explore the erotic on today's show. But surprise, we are not just talking about sex. We're using Audre Lorde's groundbreaking conception of the erotic as, quote, a resource within each of us that lies in a deeply female and spiritual plane, firmly rooted in the power of our unexpressed or unrecognized feeling, end quote. Her idea of the erotic includes the sexual, but prioritizes the sensual. The erotic empowers us to center pleasure and joy in our lives, also as modes of resistance and revolution. In this conversation, we will share about our own connections and challenges with the erotic, the role of beauty within the sensual, and what part the erotic might play in transforming our world right now. But first, let's check in. Sebene, how are you feeling? How are you showing up today?
I feel much better after hearing you intro this episode. I'm excited to talk about this. I realize how much I needed this right now. I'm right at the tail end of my in-between time of these surgeries. So I have my next surgery next week. And as I was telling you before, we started recording, I've just been, like frustrated and kind of reaching my breaking point with where I'm at physically, but also I think it's starting to really hit me what I'm about to go through yet again. So I'm a little bit down, I would say, in terms of my energy today. I'm gonna try and lean into the whining. Maybe it'll make its way into our discussion of the erotic, but happy to be with you.
Happy to be with you too, friend.
How are you doing with your sexy voice for the erotic episode?
Yeah, well, let's hope it stays sexy and doesn't veer back into the kind of 14-year-old boy voice breaking as he goes through puberty vibe that I was in a couple days ago. I have a cold that I'm recovering from, so apologies, listeners, to however my voice may sound or whatever may happen during this episode.
Or you're welcome.
But I feel you. You're welcome, as long as I sound more like Kathleen Turner than, I don't know, whatever the alternative is. But I feel you on the in-betweenness. That is very much in a different way where I am right now. As you know, I am in the process of packing up my house to move. I'm selling my house. We have sort of a planned on closing date, but it's not 100% fixed. So I'm sort of packing as if and I have an intermediary place to stay, which I'm very grateful for. But I also don't know where I'm sort of permanently moving. So it feels very fluxy. It feels very in between. It feels very threshold, right? But sort of like threshold to what? Exactly, like to where are we going exactly? And like there's a lot of positive signs. So I'm feeling good, but um yeah, I feel like, and we both listen to the astrology podcast, and a lot of times they talk about with different planets and transits, they'll highlight certain keywords that are associated with them. And I feel like for this year, for last year, like in between feels like one of those
Mm,
keywords that we're all sitting with in different ways. It feels like there's so much flux and so much change.
mm.
And so many difficult things that we're navigating, like, as you are in a very physical sense right now.
Yeah. And, then when I think about that in terms of the erotic, it's like even more at least let me speak for myself. I need to root into the body and the sensual and feeling and pleasure as a means of balancing all the uncertainty and difficulty and challenges and pain, physical and psychic. And yeah, and I'm appreciating. I re-listened to Audre Lorde. There's a version on YouTube that we can link to um, in the show notes, but there's a version of her reading this essay at a conference or some gathering. And uh, yeah, it was so helpful to remember how profound this idea of the erotic as refuge really. I don't know if she uses that word, but for me,
Mhm.
that's what it feels
Mhm.
like as this deep well, this deep source
Mhm.
for appreciating life in this way that is hard when you're going through it or the world is going through it. And yeah, so I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, I listened to that talk as well in preparation for this essay, and there was a metaphor that she uses that I wanted to share that might be an interesting place to start. But before we get there, I also wanted to ask for you. There are so many people navigating physical things, navigating illness, navigating challenges. And I'm curious, you're talking about the erotic and the sensual as refuge. And I'm curious how that shows up for you, like finding that refuge in the sensual when there is also, and this may not be the way that you would put it, but like pain in the sensual as well.
Mm,
Like,
hmm
how does that kind of play out for
hmm
you? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a certain point, I think I've talked about this and I've written about it, but just I wanted to apologize for all the times when I was asked about how to work with pain on retreat or in classes in terms of meditation. And I had never really experienced chronic pain at that time. Of
Mm,
course, I'd experienced pain because we all have, and I'd gone through pain, various cancer treatments. But there's something about really tending to the body in pain that is about, for me, moving towards that comfort or ease. At one point in the essay, she talks about understanding whether it feels right to me.
yeah.
That's like kind of the invitation. Does this feel right to me? And of course, physical pain doesn't feel right. Like it feels wrong initially, but there's this sort of um, patience with like really understanding then what's the response, right? Like this feels right to
Hmm.
actually move my body, or there can be especially in the type of meditation that I've been trained in, to keep stillness as this like almost like fetishizing stillness and silence as like the goal. But I find that movement is really helpful for my pain. So even if I'm
Yeah.
in a formal meditation, to actually allow my body to sway and allow my
Mm-hmm.
hips to sway, and that is, yeah, that knowing if something feels right to me or not, and then you could just apply that to so much because there's certainly a lot of things that feel wrong right now.
It's like a couple bits and
3
pieces.
thousand million.
A million, it's colossal waste heap of oh
Of
my
wrong
gosh.
feeling.
Yeah, of wrong feeling. Yeah.
Yeah,
But so that like
but
that deeper wisdom of the body, right? Where
yeah,
you
there is this deeper wisdom of, like, the body knows how to feel free,
mm,
right?
mm,
And so
mhm,
to allow
right.
that, and a
Not
lot of
this
the time, it for me involves, like, laying down. Like, I'm a big proponent of laying down meditation because the body can
yeah, yeah.
finally relax and release, and, yeah, so that encouragement, it feels right to me. This feels right to me, or that feels right to me is an exploration. Like, it's not like an end thing. Like, okay, this feels right and that's it. But it's this continual, like, kind of knowing without like reactivity of like, okay, now I got to move it this way. Now I got to move. That doesn't feel right. Like it has to sort of come
With the
from
balance.
balance and like kind of just like a larger awareness that has the space to like really be with something, and now like
Mhm.
physical or emotional, like instead of immediately like pushing it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Yeah, what's been sparked
Well,
from this essay for you?
yeah, well, I was thinking it might be interesting to ground folks to share a little bit about what we kind of perceive as definitions or ideas that surround the erotic and maybe some that come up in the specific Audre Lorde talk that we were referring to for people who aren't familiar with that. But I was also just, when I was listening to you, I was thinking about this moment um, where I was able to kind of drop into my body and drop into presence and drop into sort of sensualness in a way that felt like so much deeper than anything I'd experienced in a really long time. Um, and for folks who have been listening to this show, you may know that I do a lot of work with crystals. And so I had been sitting in meditation. I was working with this specific crystal, which is a black garnet, which is many of the crystals have associations with different chakras. And this one is association with Earth Star, which is like the chakra beneath the root chakra, so super, super grounded. And I just had this experience of almost like getting this kind of cosmic tune up. And I kind of came out of that meditation. And it was so interesting. I just felt more, we're talking about the erotic as being able to ground you, and I felt so grounded and so rooted. And it was like I was walking on the ground and it just like, I felt like every footstep in this really
Mm,
palpable way. And I went into my kitchen to make dinner and I was, chopping the garlic and I was chopping and I just felt like I was with the garlic and like and I was so excited to I was like, I can't wait to put this food that I'm making in my body. I just felt like
mm,
very erotic, like very sensual. That state persisted for, I don't know, maybe 24, 36 hours, something like that. Like I was just so grounded, so present. It was really beautiful that like what a can like how much joy that brought me to enter
mm,
into that space and also how much gratitude because I was not all, in my head and in my whatever, my anxieties and my fears and my stuff like, that comes
mhm,
up when you get just your energy gets way too drifted up into that space. But I just could see all of my blessings because I was so there and that sensuousness kind of opened me more to them. Um, so and of course then it's sad when it sort of, back to back to where I was before, but so amazing to have that experience and be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's available." Um, and when I was re-listening to that Audre Lorde talk, um, she was talking about the erotic as a source of information and power, a source that,
Mhm.
I sort of will say we're conditioned not to maybe reference so much or to dip into so much. Um, and also really talking about the power that comes from non-rational knowledge, right? From
Mm.
that erotic, from that sensual information. And she used this metaphor that I love so much, where she was talking about, um, I guess it was during World War II, getting like margarine. You would get your margarine, it would be white, and it would come with this little yellow pellet in it, like alongside of the package for like coloring. And you would put the pellet in there, and then you would like, kind of knead it like into the margarine until this yellow coloring like sort of suffused all of it. And she was saying, that's what that's kind of what I feel like the erotic can kind of be suffused into everything and add this like brightness and this color and kind of this energy into everything when we kind of invite it into the fullness of our body, the fullness of how we show up, all of these things. And I thought that metaphor was really powerful, thinking about how we can suffuse the erotic, right? Because it's so in our culture limited to kind of this focus on sex. But how can we suffuse that sensuousness and that awareness? Like I was saying in my example, like infusing cooking with the erotic, and there was just like, oh, this appreciation of all of the ingredients and this idea that I was going to nourish my body with that food and how that can really be, I think, as you were saying earlier, a real source of strength and empowerment.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and grounding us in that because I realize, just coming here today with, as I said, a lot of frustration and being in the midst of this kind of pain portal that I've been in for a while, I realize how hard it's been actually to access that. Like as you were describing it,
Hmm.
not that I haven't had moments of sensual pleasure. I've had many in the past year, but this kind of sustained connection to the body, like how much I haven't wanted to be in my body because of what's been happening and how much my body's been a problem. And I know that's true for many people in different ways, not necessarily because of debilitation, but for whatever relationships we have with our bodies that are conflicted.
Yeah.
And the body is our opening to the erotic. We can't have a relationship to the erotic without our senses. That emphasis on the sensual and not only the sexual, but also the sexual has been, for me when I first read this essay, I think I first read it in college, but then later on came to it again, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. It was kind of making a resurgence, I think mostly due to the work of Adrienne Marie Brown, kind of bringing it forward in her book, especially Pleasure Activism, but she was writing about it before that. Um, that this attention to all of our senses as this source of power, as you're saying, of, so the beauty around me. I know we both are like fans of the aesthetic um and beautifying spaces and places and bodies and how music or food or scent or touch,
Laughter.
all laughter.
Let us not forget.
Really, just all of that dance, the full appreciation of our bodies as these feeling beings, and how much that's just really kind of diminished and also discouraged. I think about it
Mm.
as a straight woman, straight-ish, um, how often I experience myself as the object of the male gaze. Like, I think until
Mhm.
my 30s, I'd never really been aware of how I didn't even know how to engage in my own pleasure beyond self-pleasure and masturbation. Like,
Mhm.
there was this way in which I was objectifying myself, like,
Mm.
in relationship with someone else, you know? And how that's even still hard for me. Like,
Mm.
it's still hard to really rest in pleasure. And part of that is attention
Mm.
span, like you're saying, like, you were in this heightened state because of this experience, spiritual experience you had, but we don't necessarily sustain that, right? Outside of our
No.
meditations or specific acts. But like part of it is that ability to stay with the experience, but part of it is really like a larger conditioning to be like, that's not what's important. That's not what matters. That's not what's valued. Like, I'm going to think my way out of this. I'm going to think my way to feeling good or having a good experience. And like how often I'm not really present for what's happening because I've like spent so much time trying to arrange like a dinner or a gathering or a experience. And then like, am I actually taking it in, through all my
Yeah.
senses?
Yeah, absolutely. And that like predominance, as you say, of like the mind and of the rationality and of the like what's the outcome gonna be and the planning, the sort of forward looking and the backward looking, all of which, just takes us out of like that actual ability to be present in the moment and to actually inhabit all of our senses. Like and the challenges on top of the conditioning of just like the, batshit craziness of like everything that is happening right now. And, you read the news and it's like, like just like so
Mm,
much going on, which, and you look at that stuff and I don't know about you, but it has some impact on the body, right? Whether it's like a freeze or a disassociation or some impact, right, on our ability to be in our bodies, and a lot of times just like the energy rising up, right, like just getting into that fear, getting into that anxiety, or whatever it is your favorite emotional flavor in reaction to reading the news. um Fear and anxiety are like two of my faves. I don't know about you. But yeah, it's like we just have so many. And that just like gazing at the screens, gazing at the cell phones, gazing at social media, gazing at the news, it pulls us so out of our bodies and out of the erotic. And to one of the points that Audre Lorde talks about is like out of our life force, right?
hmm.
Like the erotic as this like centering of our life force. I think about, Eros is in kind of, if you talk about like the chakra system, it's sort of centered around the sacral chakra, the second chakra. So like the lower abdomen where, all of our like, um, sexual organs are like, um, and our connection to sexuality, but also like that connection to all of creation, to all of generativity. Like I think of that chakra as kind of this like hearth of creativity, right? Like that kind of flame coming up from there that we light. And or even not that we light, but that we tend, like that sort of fire of Vesta or something. And if we're not in the body, if we're cut off from that, we're really cut off from that life force. And as I was thinking about that, as I was thinking about this episode, I was also thinking about June Jordan and her saying, love is life force. And so that
Mm.
connection from like, the erotic eros to love, but like love as life force. So much of what is everything that is happening, like this kind of, this um, regime that we're living under here in the US right now is like anti-life, anti-love, right? And therefore
Mm,
also like, it's like anti-life force, anti-eros,
mm.
um, in my opinion. I don't know. How does that land for you?
Yeah, totally. It's so beautifully put. And yeah, and it's as you're speaking again, I'm recognizing like and maybe there are folks that this resonates for of just when the body is injured or ill, and my current injuries happen to be in the second chakra, right? There is this
Mhm.
dimming and squelching of that energy. And yet we live in a system that I can't just completely stop, right? I mean, I've slowed down this past year, but I have not been able to completely stop except for short periods of time, just because, we live in capitalism that is extractive and exploitative, and I do not have the resources to not stop, um,
Yeah.
or to stop. And how, yeah, that sort of like engine that you have to keep feeding in order to power a system that is not fully regenerative, right? That's sort of
Yeah,
having
or
to
even a little bit.
constantly, yeah, yeah, and I think for many of us in this culture, like we don't have a connection to systems and structures, not to mention the actual earth and the energy that, being connected to the earth provides. I always think about how I live on the
Yeah.
fifth floor. And as you know, I have a lot of
Mm,
plants. And one of the reasons why I like to have
beautiful
a lot of
plants.
plants is because I feel so ungrounded in the air. I used to have
Mm,
this ridiculous argument with my ex-husband about like where we would want to live if we didn't live here. And he would get so
uh-huh.
mad because he did not like the idea of a brownstone because they're dark, which is whatever. We're not going to have a brownstone anyways because we didn't have the money for it. But like, so we're having these hypothetical, ridiculous arguments
We're
about
not
where
buying a
we're,
multi-million dollar
yeah, like what fancy
brownstone.
home do we not have? But he was like, no, the answer is an apartment that has like balconies and you can see and you have a lot of plants. And I was like, no, I want to live on the ground. Like if I had a brownstone, I would put my bedroom
Mm,
in the ground floor
yeah.
because I want to sleep on the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that idea of just being more grounded, literally,
Mhm, mhm.
is such a. I mean, I'm never leaving my apartment because it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, rent stabilized place, so that I have to die
This
here.
this is a
But
good apartment.
it's a good apartment. I'm not. I'm not complaining about my apartment. Hello, universe. I'm not complaining about my apartment. But there,
And also
I was at this journey
yeah.
one time, this ceremony, and there was a woman who was kind of feeling ungrounded, and she took off her shoes, or she took off her socks. I think her shoes were already off, and she just like stuck her feet in a plant that was in the space to ground herself. And I was like, that is awesome. I love that.
Maybe we just need to get you some even bigger potted plants so you could do like a little walking meditation like around
Girl,
it. We'll just get you like a 10-foot diameter
I'm never repotting
pot.
these plants.
You
So
got some epic ones there.
oh my God, that palm in there is like trying to take over the living room. It's like, it so wants another pot. It was so tiny. My mom and I found it like 20 years ago on the street in DC. And it was like this spindly little thing dying on the
Wow.
corner. Yeah. And now it's like a friggin' tree in my living room. So,
Yeah, I mean, that thing's at least like 6 feet tall, 5 feet wide,
oh,
some
yeah.
things
Yeah. I mean, because
spinning
it's
all
bent,
around.
it's taller than 6 feet for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's erotic.
I feel it. It's an erotic plant.
Yeah, I love how Audre Lorde in the essay talks about like all these moments of the erotic that seem so kind of mundane, like she mentions painting a
Mm,
fence or like touching her lover's back, or
mm,
that there the that this sort of earthiness of life, is dismissed as unimportant.
mm,
And I think about this a lot in terms of beauty. I've been thinking about my love of beauty and the labor that goes into beautifying, and
mm,
in big and small ways. It might be that I want my home to feel luscious and sensual and interesting in terms of color and texture and scent and feeling, and um eh, but it's also in a kind of tiny way. Like I think I told you, I never realized that I could change the font in Notion to monotype. And then I was like, oh my God, I love
yeah.
the way this looks. So Notion is a project management system that I use for all my like writing and stuff. And so I went and like changed all the pages to monotype, and it made me so happy. I was like, so,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a kind of labor that gets dismissed as not productive, right? Oh, we have the designers
Mm-hmm.
that, make things, but the sort of the making of the space and how often that is
Mm-hmm.
associated with the home and with women and with the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this I think you called it erotic labor at one point when we were talking about it. And
Mm,
it is a labor of beauty, and an erotic labor that is deeply sensual and so healing, right? Like it's this
mm-hmm.
quiet creative power.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, beauty is I'm a little uncomfortable right now because I'm in such disarray in my house because I'm
Mm,
packing and I'm so like, I have so many altars in my house and, my art and my quilts and my whatever, as with you, like very interested in color and arrangement and just creating a beautiful space because it brings me so much joy and so much peace. And it's very common that people come into my home and they're just like, oh, it's just like, I'm sure you experience this too. They're just like, oh, it just like feels good in here. And and so it's like we all know it and we have this extremely intuitive, like erotic reaction to it. But as you say, we're not so acculturated to like consciously appreciating it or consciously like attributing a lot of value to that creation of beauty, to that erotic labor. And something else you were saying was making me think I've been, although the disarray bothers me, I have been enjoying packing so much. And I wasn't really thinking about it as sort of, as sensuous, erotic activity. And for me, it's such a pleasure because so much of the work that I do is intellectual and creative, but in like a very mind focused
mm,
sort of way. I'm writing, like I'm not like dancing.
mm,
Um, and so to spend day after day doing like physical things and just being in that kind of very 3D physical world brings me so much joy and is so like calming and peaceful
mm,
for my mind in the same way that, I have a bunch of wood I need to stack outside. And that too is such a kind of pleasurable, it is a very kind of rote activity, but it's so, so pleasurable. Um, And I remember when I was interviewing Adrienne Marie Brown years ago when pleasure activism came out for my other podcast, Hurry Slowly, talking about pleasure and just really noticing. I remember talking with her about it, but then really reflecting on it after the conversation, how much for me, how all of my moments of real joy and pleasure revolve around being very present in a sensuous kind of way, whether it's in
mm,
nature or experiencing a meal with someone or, making love or any number of these things, but where you really are feeling like truly connected to your body. That's like eh, almost every instance of like real joy and pleasure lands there for me.
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder, as you were saying that, I was like, well, that's like all pleasure must come from that. But I know that there are people who get pleasure from things that we don't consider sensual. But I think I told you recently I was teaching a retreat and I met this guy on the retreat, uh, one of the retreatants, who was a math prodigy when he was young. And he
Mm,
talked to me. We were having a larger conversation about AI and things at the end of the retreat. But um, he basically said to me, um, math is taught wrong because it's actually a sensual experience. And I was like, okay, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
mm.
No, didn't I tell you this? I was like,
I'm intrigued. No,
I
you didn't tell me this
know.
one.
Yeah. And I was like, what does that mean? So I have to follow
Say
up with
more.
him. Yeah, I know. Really. I was like, I want to know more. But yeah,
Wait, is this gonna be a
perhaps
cliffhanger? Are you gonna tell us?
I don't know.
Are you gonna
I
tell us how
haven't
it's
explored
sensual?
it. I need to know.
Oh my
I'm
god.
not. But I'm saying that I know that there are times when I get such pleasure out of writing, which is such
Mhm.
a mental project and experience, but
Yes.
it's often when the things I'm writing are eliciting kind of a joy of this
Mhm.
connection of experience, of ideas and
Mhm.
moments and
Mhm.
humor
Mhm.
and poignancy. And I have a good friend from college, Madeline Kent, who teaches a, a modality that she's created. She's also a Feldenkrais practitioner called
Mhm.
sense writing, and invites people into a real kind of connection with the body and with the senses in their writing. And so I've taken a number of workshops with her over the years, and it really resonates for me. And I'm not always employing sense writing in my writing, but I think that
Mm.
that's sort of seeped into me over however the decade that Madeline's been teaching that. Um, but yeah, I'm wondering if all pleasure is in fact sensual pleasure. And just one more thing to add, that, in the Buddhist kind of structure, the mind is the sixth sense. And so
Mm.
what is the
Uh-huh.
experience of the mind? And this is not consciousness, this is the mind sense. Consciousness is another thing. But, can we have a relationship to that actually is embodied, right?
Mm. That's so interesting, yeah, and I'm so glad you made that point because, of course, as soon as I finished what I was saying, I thought, "Well, but what about ideas?" Like, my greatest pleasure, talking about ideas, or having
Yes.
ideas or
Yeah.
having that insight, right? And yeah, and to your point with writing too, like when I'm having the most fun or I'm getting the most enjoyment from it, I'll make myself laugh or I'll make myself cry
Yes.
or, I'll like
Totally.
literally move myself in some way and be like, oh, okay,
Mm,
I know this is good, right? Like I
mm.
myself am moved by this. And exactly as you say, it's this kind of, I am able to so inhabit it and also it creates something that feels sensuous in and of itself, right? Um, and I
Wow,
am a
that's so
great believer in, go ahead.
good. No, you go ahead.
I was
You're
just
a
saying,
great
I
believer.
am a great believer in the power of words to move energy. Like words, as we both would agree, right? Everything is vibration. Words are vibration. Every way in which we show up is vibration in a sense. And so it's all sensuous or able to be felt in that way. And I really believe that words can, have a very deep physical, energetic impact on us, which of course is a very like erotic, very sensuous thing. Well, you were
Mm.
having an insight or
Yeah,
something.
well,
What were you thinking?
when you started talking about movement, I was just thinking about that article that we both read from Harper's about consciousness, and he was talking about time and space as being sort of
Mm,
these constructs we have, but they miss movement. and flow,
Mhm.
and how much, and a lot of activists use movement as the word to describe their work, and how
Mhm.
that's just a natural, then it's the nature of reality is change fundamentally, right? But really flow and movement. And so how much erotic experience and pleasure is about tapping into movement, whatever sense door it's coming through, right? And
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
and that is it's also in the pleasure of witnessing, like, that different colors and different shapes have energy to them, right? So even if it's a
Mhm.
static painting, it is movement because of those dynamic pairings. And when we were talking about sort of spaces of beauty before, I was just, what flashed in my mind is like the beige people, this kind of phenomena of like, it's a lot of
Are you talking about
millennials,
beige
I think.
moms?
Are they moms mostly now? I witnessed it, like, at the beginning of the pandemic. I started pandemic, or right before, I started noticing, like, a lot of young people, especially women, were just, like, all beige, like, they were all neutral, and then their
Mhm.
spaces are that way too, like, their homes are, like, all
Mhm.
beige, and how unerotic that is, like, how little movement there is, right?
Yeah, kinda one note, monotone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my friend was recently referring to beige moms, or she was talking about her daughter was referring to beige moms, but, like, it was almost like in an aspirational way, and I was like, "What's a beige mom?" And I was like, "Is that someone who wears, like, a lot of, like, Eileen Fisher?" You know? Um, and she was like, "I think so," and, we were like, "We're old." Um, but, yeah, that's an interesting one. Even, like, going beyond that, just thinking about, like, cars today, right? Like, everyone has a black or a gray or a white. Like, we've really you go to a coffee shop, there's this kind of standard, or an Airbnb, right? There's this kind of standard sort of neutered, like, cool
Mhm.
woods and whites, and,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
it's also a very beige, like, kind of vibe, and it's interesting like that. I wanted to say denuding, but denuding of color, but, like, nuding of color or something,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
that, yeah, just pulling out all of that saturation and the eroticness of that
Mhm. Mhm.
saturation and that variation
Yeah.
and that individuality and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we could say about race and culture here, but I don't wanna go down that road. But yes, there is that
Mhm.
sort of, um, blandness of, like,
Mm.
no spice in the no
Mhm.
spice in the food kind of feeling, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely a beige feeling.
Poor beige. We're not, dismissing beige. We're just saying not only beige.
Not only beige.
I'm looking at a Hilma Klint, poster, and there's, like, some beige tones in it, so it's, like, in relationship to other things. I remember when I was
Right.
in Hawaii, 25 years ago or something, visiting Peter Bird, who you met over Christmas, and we
Mhm.
went to the beach and did mushrooms, and so this might have factored into it, but I was just so overwhelmed by the perfection of nature's color palette, just like this.
In Hawaii specifically?
And well, it hit me in Hawaii because I
Well,
was on
just you were
mushrooms,
no
and in
you just happened to be
Hawaii.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Um,
which is amazing.
but there was a lot of beige, which is why it came to me in that
Mm.
moment because of the sand, but it was, you know, backgrounded by this dark lava rock and these red flowers and these,
Mhm.
sage greens, and it was so
Mhm.
beautiful. And yeah, this sensualness of color, that energy is so powerful.
Yeah, well, and one of the powers I think also of plants and, like, psychedelics, right, is that they can bring us into that deep, not always, but they can bring us into that deep communion with the erotic where we're able to feel, like, that level of beauty and, nature's design and this, this saturation of color in this way that when we're in our sort of more normal state is really difficult to access. Um, I'm curious, we're doing this episode on the day before Valentine's Day, and just thinking a little bit about that, a little bit about love, a little bit about the fact that our culture has decided to create one day for love. just
Only
just the one.
one.
Just only celebrated on the one day, which is obviously
Wah,
a little
wah.
sad and a little problematic. Um, and I was thinking about something that one of my teachers said to me, which is that true power is the free flow of love. Um,
That's
being
beautiful.
able to be tuned into the erotic in that way, that you're constantly in dialogue with it. And I was thinking again of that margarine metaphor from Audre Lorde, and this idea that, like, if you could, the same way that you squeeze that little yellow pellet out, like if you could squeeze that, have that love permeate like every cell of your body, like how would you not be stronger, you know?
Oh, yeah. I
Like the
mean,
strength that comes from that. But that's
mhm.
so disconnected from the way that we're conditioned, hence love gets one day. Not love's not strong. We'll just one little day over here.
And, honestly, very hard to sustain without a lot of support, inner
Mm,
support and interpersonal support and structural
yeah.
support and, and,
Well, it's that free flow, right? Because it's got to be flowing back to you too, right?
right. And it's often so depleted in so many of us. And so many
Hmm.
people who are naturally so loving, they're just tapped out. And
Hmm.
understandably so. And I mean, I would put myself in that category of just like I have
Mm.
my capacities are quite limited right now. And so I have to be really
Hmm.
careful about that. And then, the sort of focus on a particular kind of love. It's like one day for love, but only romantic love,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that, I mean, that's a whole other episode or conversation. But
Yeah.
how,
That's the end all be all.
yeah. And that, I love how Audre Lorde makes the distinction between like the pornographic and the erotic,
Hmm.
and how this
Hmm.
hyper fixation on the sexual, which I will couple with the romantic, because it's so tied
Hmm.
up, um, is is so depleting, because
Hmm.
it really it doesn't allow us to have that exchange that you're describing of love, except with those partners, if we have them.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, will my expression of love be perceived as romantic or somehow like a come on, or you know what I mean? Because people are always in that lens, it also can be like kind of a limitation in terms of expressing love, because it feels like someone might receive it in sort of the wrong way because they're only used to like that channel or something like that as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this, uh, like, thing, what do you call that? YouTube short, like a little clip. So,
Mhm.
basically,
Yeah.
like, something from social media that ended up on YouTube. That's what I think those are. And it was, like, those gags or those, like, bits that people do, like, me acting crazy to see how my partner will react to my crazy energy, and, like,
Mhm.
there'll be, like, a bunch of those.
Mhm.
So, it was men trying to grab the hands of other men, so they're, like, brothers or friends, and then
Mm.
tape and I think one brother or friend continued holding the hand. All of them were like, "Ooh,
Mm.
and it was
Mm.
so
Mm.
wild. And, I come
Mhm.
from cultures, both Ethiopian and Eritrean cultures, men hold hands. So you'll like,
Mhm.
see two soldiers with their like pinkies linked walking down the road with the machine guns on their other
Mhm.
arms, and I was used to a little bit more kind of
Yeah.
connection between men, but that feeling that you can't even, and I can be guilty of this. I mean, I'm definitely very huggy with my friends, but there are only a few friends that I'm actually physical with, right? That
Yeah.
there's sort of
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that same physicality that we have maybe with our closest family members, and usually, it's
Yeah.
between parents and children when the children are younger, and lovers, and how
Yeah.
sad that is.
Absolutely, and, as someone who has been single for years at a stretch or has friends who are in similar situations, paucity of touch that you can
Mhm.
experience because that is the way that we exist in this culture, um, mm, is depleting as well.
Mhm.
And I share what you said about, like, I am only able to be really affectionate with a smaller, with physically affectionate with a
I'm gonna
smaller group
hug
of
up on you
people.
next time, Jocelyn.
We're just gonna hold hands and rewatch Heated Rivalry.
Oh my god,
It's gonna be
thanks
so good.
friggin' goddess for Heated Rivalry. That show has really gotten me through this period.
It seems to be getting the internet through something right now, through the
I
beginning of
mean, talk about,
2026.
like, a good use of the erotic.
Very erotic people. Apparently, we can't stop talking about it on this show. But it was funny. I listened to an edition of Hard Fork podcast recently, which is a technology podcast on the New York Times, and one of the hosts is a queer man, and he was just talking about Heated Rivalry at like the beginning of the episode and how much he loved it. Like he and his boyfriend had just watched it, and I was like, "It's everywhere.
It
You
is
can't escape
everywhere.
it."
Well, it's part of that, like, paucity of touch. I've only lived alone, a couple of times in my life, and one was, in my mid-30s, and I had a dog then, and then the other time is now, the past 3 years, and how much better it is after, 2.5 years living without another mammal in the house. I have other beings in the house, but
Mhm.
and now to have like this very affectionate, loving dog who is,
Mhm.
surprisingly not in my lap at the moment, but usually wants to be in my lap all the time it's so helpful, just to have that
Mhm. Mhm.
sensual, erotic relationship with a dog.
Yeah, so glad Cha-Cha's in your life, and he's quite a lover. Like, I remember when I was petting him, he would, like, if I would stop, then he would take his little paw, wrap it around my hand, and, like, put it back on top of him. Like, he's expressing his needs very
He has
well,
no problem
which
holding
is good.
hands.
Yeah, he's very chill as a man with holding hands. Well, I feel
Hmm.
like should we, wrap it up there, but maybe end with, is there anything that's, bringing you a little lightness in these in between times right now?
I mean, I have been having a couple of really long conversations, like 2.5 hour more long catch up with friends who are far away. And that
Mhm.
just feels like such a sweet luxury, especially
Hmm.
for friends who I don't get to see in person a lot. Like, have that
Yeah.
extra time. I had a really long catch up with my girlfriend Naomi, who lives in LA, um, and she got to give me sort of a play by play of her recent trip to Europe with her family over the holidays, and just to hear all the and she was with mutual friends at one point, and so it was like just so yeah, it feels like something I need to give myself more often. There are a couple of friends I know that when we're going to
Mm.
catch up, I really block out time because I know we might have a
Yeah.
lot to share. Yeah, so that's been really sweet. How about you?
Mm. Yeah, I love that, just allowing yourself to really sink in the way that you would were you sharing the same physical space.
Exactly,
Um,
yeah.
For me, just lately, I have been watching old Kristen Wiig performances on
Ooh,
SNL. Kristen Wiig is like
icon.
one of my favorite comedic actresses. Um, we didn't do it this year, but we talked. Hopefully, 2026. Me and some friends up here talked about doing a Halloween party where we all just dressed up as Kristen Wiig characters from
Oh my
SNL, which
God.
would be
Which would you
so
be?
amazing. I would be Triangle Sally, slightly lesser known Kristen Wiig character who 100% looks like someone from Woodstock. Like she wears a lot of like purple jumpsuits and like headbands and just plays like the triangle, the musical instrument, and does like a lot of high kicks. I'll put something in the show note links for people.
I like that that kind of 40s character she plays that's like, don't make me sing. Do you know that one?
uh-huh.
She
She's the
is
best.
she's incredible.
Thank God.
So, well, thank you for this, friend. This Valentine's gift to each other. And thank you all for listening. It's an honor to have you listen to our show and share time with us. And we'd love to know that you're there. So if you have a chance, please like and rate this on whatever podcast platform you're on, or send us a message through one of our channels and let us know that you're here. We love to hear from you. You can continue to hear from us every other week here. And also, each of us has a newsletter on Substack. Jocelyn's newsletter, Radiate, is an amazing exploration of creativity and consciousness. And I always say this, but it's so true. There are always just such insights and inspiration there. And yeah, I'm really like love receiving that now through Substack, where I can also write funny little notes on your page. Um, and then I write a newsletter called Remind Me to Love that follows the moon phases. And you can sign up for both of those with the links below in your podcast app. All right, friends. Hope you it's funny, I started so sad and now I'm just like silly, which is good. Sad and silly.
All right, we did it. We did
That's gonna
it.
be my epitaph. Sad and silly. Please find ways to find the erotic, feel the erotic for yourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
find some comedy and consciousness. And we will see you next time and leave you with this moment of clown. Yeah, I'm a little like, am I going to be funny or fun today at all?
I mean, it can also be funny to just go into the frustration and the sadness and the darkness,
So fun. Oh my God, so fun.
2026 is looking so fun.
So
Oh my
sad.
God.
So fun.
Yeah, this is the problem. We're just not like, we need to figure out how to expand our definition of fun
Mm-hmm.
to encompass annihilation and grief and sadness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all.
Right? Right? And then that's all.
That's all. That's it.
There's no wrong emotions.